I'd like to recognize some of the dignitaries who are with us tonight. First of all, Governor Bruce Sunland of Rhode Island. Congressman Moakley, Congressman Kennedy, Congressman Olver, Congressman Neal, Congressman Markey, Congressman Studs, Congressman Meehan. We could not have had all the great accomplishment that we've had over the course of the past 13 months without a true partnership between Congress, this president, and this administration, and we truly, truly appreciate your support. Representative Joan Menard, the majority leader in Massachusetts and the state Democratic chair. And by the way, in an unprecedented development for a national party, I think about 15% of the net proceeds from tonight's dinner will stay in the state with the Massachusetts State Party. Speaker Charles Flaherty, Senator William Bulger, Attorney General Scott Harshbarger, Secretary of State Michael Connolly, Susan Brophy, the Deputy Assistant to the President of the United States for Government Relations, and Eli Siegel, the President of the Corporation for National Service. I want to thank Alan Leventhal, Fred Siegel, Paul Montrone, Elaine Schuster, Alan Solomont for their extraordinary efforts in making this the single most successful National Party fundraiser in New England's history. And I've got it figured out. If we did this on a per capita basis, this would be the single largest fundraiser, period, in the history of the Democratic National Committee. And if we had the equivalent per capita event in New York City, we would have raised $17 million. So that's the kind of event that this is tonight, and we are tremendously, tremendously grateful. All this goes to show that as we head into 1994, the Democratic Party is absolutely united behind this president and the First Lady, proud of our accomplishments, imbued with a sense of purpose for the tasks we have ahead, and ready to do battle with the Republican Party that doesn't have a vision, doesn't have a plan, and doesn't have a clue where this country is headed. That's why they've latched onto, dare I say it, Whitewater. They've got no other choice. They've got no other strategy. You see, the American people now look to our party, the Democratic Party, for leadership on just about every issue that really matters in the lives of average Americans. The Republicans know it, so let them obsess about matters like that. Let us obsess about the things that really matter. Let us be obsessed with jobs. Let us be obsessed with deficit reduction. Let us be obsessed with health care reform. Let us be obsessed with preventing crime. Let us be obsessed with doing all that we can to improve the lives of people who live here in Boston, here in Manchester and Dorchester and Providence and all over the New England region. The American people know the difference between a party that is trying to build things up and a party that is trying to tear things down. They know the difference between performance and rhetoric. They know the difference between putting people first and putting partisanship first. They know the difference between a party that works every day to improve the lives of middle and lower income people in this country and a party that does not. So thank you for your support. History is on our side, and we're going to deliver the change the American people are so desperately seeking. Thank you. We're going to deliver that change in large part because of the leadership of the man I am about to introduce, a man of principle and integrity, a man who has been pushing our party in new and different directions since he chose a public career, a man who has taken on just about every difficult and complicated issue facing this country, the kind of issues that others might flee from, POWs and MIAs, Nicaragua, race relations, BCCI, campaign finance reform, a man who demonstrated a long time ago that a Democrat could take the lead on issues like crime and economic growth, a man who has emerged as a real leader and partnered with this president on the crime bill, ensuring that 100,000 additional police officers will be soon on our nation's streets. It is a great honor to present to you Senator John Kerry.
David, thank you very, very much. I have to straddle this. It's my first experience with one of these things that sticks out here, folks. I am very appreciative of your warm comments. Mr. President, we are thrilled to have you here. And I want you to know, looking around this room, Ted Kennedy and I are thrilled to have so many Democratic donors locked in one room at the same time. I just want to ask everybody here, if you are as amused as I am at the Republican choice of Al D'Amato as their spokesman on ethics, I suppose, thinking about it, that Bob Packwood was busy, so. This is a democratic function, folks. I would like to just share a couple of quick thoughts before introducing our next speaker. As we know better, probably, than many states in the country, Washington offers an enormous amount, but one thing that has not been conspicuous in recent years is courage. The courage of convictions, the courage to lead, the courage to make choices. And I think that there isn't one person here, judging by the spontaneous and genuine welcome given to our president this evening, there is not one person here who doubts that that lack of courage has been changed dramatically since January of 1993. I think it's fair to say that long overdue, there is now in Washington not empty rhetoric about values, but there is a movement, there is a commitment, there is an energy building, there is a passion to try to put values at the center of our political dialogue in this country, and more importantly, to act on that dialogue. And that change, you and I know, has come about because finally, and I say this with enormous gratitude as one of the folks of our generation who has waited for this for too long, we have a president of the United States who is willing to make choices and to lead this country. We have a president with an agenda that he believes in, and in turn, that is worth our believing in with him. We have a president who's asked us whether or not it's right for a mother to choose between welfare or health care, and asked us to do something about it finally. We have a president who has dared to even challenge the bonds of his own party and break those bonds by leading America into the workplace of the future, winning an extraordinarily difficult battle on NAFTA, pushing for increased training and technology for our workers, forcing us to fight for the transition to high-wage, high-value-added jobs, and offering us, for the first time in 30 years, a vision for the next century. And after 12 years, I know Scott Harshbarger shares with me, and Ted Kennedy does, and so many others. After 12 years of phony declarations of war on drugs and the pitiful, endless demagoguery of law and order, we have a president who will not only put on the table the resources to put cops on our streets and build the prisons we need and provide the drug treatment we need and the alternatives for kids at risk, but a president who is challenging each and every one of us as Americans to understand and to act on our own responsibility to change things. I think you will agree with me, and I think most of you heard it, that his speech in Memphis was the most important single summons to values that we have heard from a president of the United States since Ted Kennedy's brother gave us one in the 1960s. This president has challenged us as a party to put into action the notion that no worker who loses a job will lose health care. He has already signed into law the ability of parents to be able to be with newborns when they enter this world, or the ability of a member of the family to be with another member of the family who is sick. And that, my friends, is putting value into the notion that has been abused by Republicans called family values. He has asked us to turn unemployment into reemployment and to think differently about a marketplace that is changing by the day. And he is the first president in these 30 years that we have waited to offer a vision of the future and to be willing to fight for it. Perhaps most importantly, nowhere has Washington showed less courage or resisted change more than in the effort to reform ourselves, and particularly the way in which we finance our campaigns. But again, this president, against some of the advice of party leaders and the conventional wisdom of the Beltway, has picked up the cudgel, and now we have the most comprehensive campaign finance reform in committee and hopefully awaiting his signature later this year. So, my friends, he has done all of this while simultaneously leading us to reduce the deficit so that we are now, for the first time since Harry Truman, in the third consecutive year of deficit reduction. This really is the difference. As I look around this room and I look at so many friends who've been part of this journey of 20 years or more and so much a part of the history of the great politics of this state, this is what it is all about. This is the real stuff of politics. And this is why all of you are here tonight supporting this great president of the United States of America. And no one understands this fight better. No one has been more at the center of this effort long before the president or I or others in our delegation came to Washington than our own senior senator from Massachusetts, Ted Kennedy. Ted is really anxious to get this election over with, folks.
John Kerry. Let's give John a nice round of applause for being a... John. Now, my colleague, the president, I've already heard him, is going to tell you what a great guy he is, and you all know it, and it's better coming from him. But he's a dear and wonderful friend. John, I thank you very much. I want to join in paying tribute to some very good friends, to all of us here in elective office, to Alan and Fred. They just do a magnificent job. All of us are grateful to you. To Paul and Elaine, we thank you so much to that magnificent committee. Well done. We're grateful to you. And all of us in elective office are appreciative of all of your help and your support over the years. Let me just add my appreciation to Dave Wilhelm. You know, when Dave went out there at that conference last week and just put his finger on Phil Gramm and D'Amato and old Bob Dole, you know, wasn't that wonderful? You know, he reminded me why I was a Democrat. And as Dave pointed out, we know what those Republicans are against, and Bill Clinton makes us know why we're Democrats and what the Democrats are for. Right. And it's a real pleasure to have him here. And if he doesn't do it, Hillary Rodham Clinton does. And I'm proud She's our leader on health care and a great many other issues as well. Mr. President, you're welcome in Boston, and when the time goes now and all of these headlines of the moment are gone and all the partisan politics has disappeared, when history writes the book, they're going to think of the work of Franklin Delano Roosevelt when he fought the threadbare scare tactics of those that wanted to resist Social Security, and they will think of the work of John Kennedy, and President of the United States, and they will think of this President, Bill Clinton, and what he has done in health care and the wide range of different human resource issues. We're glad to have you back. And it's my pleasure to introduce a wonderful mayor of our city. When John Kerry and I were traveling that boat over from Logan Airport earlier today, John and I were there with members of the congressional delegation and Mayor Menino. We traveled over there, and there were the fireboats. They were going. There was the spray. Thousands of people are there. And I said, John, isn't this wonderful? I'd like to get this reception all the time. And John said, if we travel with Mayor Menino, we'll always get that kind of reception. Mr. President, he's that kind of guy. Let's give Mayor Menino a wonderful round of applause. He's our mayor, and we're glad.
President Clinton, I want to welcome you back to our city. On behalf of the people of Boston, I want to thank you and your administration for the commitment and sensitivity you have shown to the unique problems and challenges facing urban America. After 4 years of deficit and despair, you have restored hope to the economy. We are finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel by way of new jobs, new opportunities for families. We have taken on the difficult task of reforming our nation's health care system so that all people be guaranteed access to quality medical care. You have also brought new focus and new fight to the war on crime with your work to get guns out of the hands of criminals and children, and with your proposal to put more police officers on the streets of our cities. As you know, Boston is the engine that drives the state and the entire New England region. As Boston goes, so goes the region. And as cities go, so goes the country. Mr. President, the people of Boston supported you in your efforts to turn our cities around, and Boston wants to be your national model for urban revitalization. We will continue to work with you and your administration to bring new life and new hope to Boston and the entire country. In conclusion, one of the great events that takes place in Boston every year is the Boston Marathon. It is the oldest marathon in the country and one of the most famous sporting events in the world. Marathons require strength, endurance, and incredible dedication to meet the challenge. As a person who was working out for you in Pennsylvania in 1992, I witnessed your amazing comeback on a tough presidential campaign trail. I know that it took the heart of a marathon runner to capture the White House that year. It also taken the heart of a marathon runner to take on the special interest and get this country moving in the right direction again. So on behalf of the people of Boston, I want to once again welcome you back to our city and present you with a 1994 Boston Marathon jacket. And Mr. President, here's the number to run the marathon, 96. Thank you. Mr. President, we have a short video presentation, just to show the celebration of your first year in office. Thank you. That was more change in 1 year than the Republicans had in 12 years. Let me introduce the President of the United States, Bill Clinton.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, for your strong and supportive words and your good leadership, and for the wonderful, wonderful entry into Boston today. When you had the boat out there spewing water and all those thousands of people and all those young people from city, you're out there cheering, I began to feel like a real president. I thank you, Lea Salonga, for traveling thousands of miles to sing for me tonight, and I'm glad I got to shake your hand. You're a great talent, and we were graced by your music. Thank you so much. I want to thank Alan and Fred and Elaine and my good friend Paul Montrone in his absence, and all the rest of you who made this dinner possible tonight. I want to thank David Wilhelm for the hard work that he's given to the Democratic Committee and for that fine film that makes my speech irrelevant. It was wonderful, wasn't it? It was a good movie. It reminded us of it. I thank Senator Kerry for his remarks and for his leadership, for his defense of the spirit and the objectives of this administration on the floor of the Senate, and his leadership in so many areas, but especially now in trying to enact a crime bill that is both tough and intelligent, and his belief that we could enact a major piece of anti-crime legislation that would really begin to attack some of the root causes of crime and to adopt some things that actually work to reduce the crime rate instead of just to raise the decibel level of the rhetoric that is in the air. John Kerry was the first member of the Congress who convinced me we might actually be able to persuade people of both parties to approve a bill in the range of $22 billion, and that we might actually be able to put 100,000 more police officers on the street and take these assault weapons off the street and give our young people some things to say yes to and have adequate drug treatment and do some things that really make sense. The whole country is in his debt, as am I and are you. I want to thank, too, strongly as I can say, your senior Senator Ted Kennedy. I'm glad that he seems to be well on his way to a strong re-election. You know, long before I had ever really thought about the obligations of this country in the area of health care, and I was the youngest elected governor in America, but not yet in office, in 1978. The Democratic Party had a mid-year convention in Memphis, and I received a call from the White House when President Carter was in office, asking me if I would moderate a discussion of this issue featuring Joe Califano, the then Secretary of Health, Education, and Welfare, and Senator Kennedy, neither of them being shrinking violets. I was 32 years old at the time and mortified. So, of course, I said I would do it. And people were there from all over the country. I only had to cross the Mississippi River from home to be there. But I remember, it was been 16 years ago now, as vividly as if it happened yesterday, when Ted Kennedy stood on that stage and said, for the first time, I think, to a truly national audience, that the health care that had been given his son when he was desperately ill should be available to every American. He said it then, and we're going to make it happen now. The film was about what we did last year, only a little about what we're trying to do this year. I can say that in a couple of minutes and then make the one central point I wish to make to all of you tonight. Last year we had a very good year. This year, we have to keep working on the economy. If we can keep the growth going, we'll have a very good year indeed. We've had 2.1 million new jobs in 13 months, 90% of them in the private sector. Most job growth was in state and local government in some years of the 1980s, or at least a huge percentage of it was. And we want to keep that going. We want to pass health care, health security that is always there, in a way that keeps what is best about health care, which you can appreciate in this shining tribute to the American health care triumph, and fix what is wrong. We want to pass a comprehensive welfare reform bill that will liberate people from the dependence of a system that has aggravated some of the worst pressures and the breakdown of the family in this country. We want to pass this crime bill. We want to pass, as John Kerry said, a campaign finance reform bill, a lobby reform bill. We want to pass a comprehensive overhaul in the unemployment system, which is designed for a time which no longer exists. It used to be when people went on unemployment, they needed a little money to get by on until the economy picked up again and they were called back to their old jobs. Now the huge majority of people who are unemployed don't get called back to their old jobs. They have to find new ones. It's wrong to tax employers to pay for an income system that's inadequate, that is leading nowhere. We need to change the whole system and begin immediately to prepare people when they lose their jobs for a different job, one in which they can succeed and win in the global economy. These are all things we need to do, and we mean to do them this year, in spite of the fact, or maybe because of the fact, that it is an election year. Now, this is a Democratic Party dinner, and it occurred to me that those of you who are here have supported this administration and me personally, and the fine people who are associated with our efforts, in spite of the fact that on April the 15th, almost all of you will get a higher tax bill. Because you know all the money's going to reduce the deficit, and you know it's meant lower interest rates, record high markets, new investment, and a growing economy. As has already been said, that our trading partners around the world beat on us for a decade to get the deficit down. If my new budget passes the Congress, and it's well on its way already, we'll have 3 years of deficit reduction for the first time since Harry Truman was president. And we will have laid the foundation for a strong private recovery. These things are terribly important. But that's not the point I want to make tonight. The point I want to make tonight is that there have always been differences between Democrats and Republicans. And these differences have taken different forms at different times. On occasion, the Republican Party has been the party of true and progressive change. The best example was, of course, the first and greatest Republican president, Abraham Lincoln. Another example was Teddy Roosevelt, who helped to usher in the modern era of new presidents, of activist presidents, a man who wanted to save much of our natural resources, a man without whom there would be no buffalo in America today, just for example, and many of our national parks would not be there, a man who understood the dangers of great concentrations of power, whether in government or in the private sector. People like President Eisenhower, who really tried to build a bipartisan foreign policy to help to move us away from the military-industrial complex, but leave us strong enough to win the Cold War. Even Richard Nixon, though he's been much maligned, signed the bill to create the Environmental Protection Agency and first proposed that all employers should contribute to their employees' health insurance so that everyone could be covered. I say that to point out that there have been good and bad ideas, embraced, I guess, by both parties at different times. I'm a Democrat by heritage, instinct, and conviction because I believe most of the time in American history we've been on the side of ordinary people, on the side of bringing people together, and on the side of the future. We have been the party of change in a constructive and profound way. I thought when I ran for president I would have the chance to enter one of these great debates and we would see what would happen, whether I was right and wrong or my ideas were right and wrong. Almost from the beginning, I saw a very different edge to the Republican Party in this time. Not the party of Lincoln and Roosevelt or Eisenhower, but the party dedicated just to being against whatever we were for and committed to the politics of personal destruction. They were so busy with it, they even tried to look in my passport file in the campaign in '92. Something that didn't bother me. I was happy to have them rummaging around in my passport file instead of coming up with a good idea that might sound better than one of my ideas. Let them go. Now, as you pointed out, they are at it again. They are at it. They have a little health retreat, and they can't agree on a health care plan. So they come back and get at it again. I just want you to know something. You look at the people that are in our administration. They get up every day and try to make something good happen for America. Senator Kennedy mentioned my wife, well known to many of you here because she went to Wellesley and spent a lot of time in Massachusetts. Has just committed herself in a passionate way to trying to figure out how to solve this health problem, to give ordinary people the chance to get health care. Let them come and debate her. Do they want to do that? No, they'd rather take out after her. It saves them the trouble of having to come up with an alternative health care plan. The Vice President of the United States, I think the ablest and most influential person ever to hold that office, and someone who has been a credit to this country, who cares passionately about what he is doing. Eli Siegel from Boston, we passed the National Service Bill. It will stand as the symbol of what this administration tried to do. Did you see those kids holding that sign when we came in the harbor today? Thank you for believing in the youth of America. This is a big deal. This is a very important time in our history. Sweeping changes going through our economy and society. Terrible problems that beg for honest debate from people of different perspectives. Even if we get the economy going, even if we provide health care to all, even if we revise the unemployment system, we do all the things I said, how can we survive as a country if within a few years over half of our kids are born into families where there was never a marriage? How will we transmit the kinds of coherent values to our people? How can we expect the young people, if they are born into fairly chaotic circumstances where they are not isolated so someone can come in and help them, to behave in 15 years from now? These are profound problems. They beg for debate. We need to think about new and different things in totally different ways than we have in the past. No one, even our party, let's be honest about it, we don't have all the answers. We need an honest debate about the future of family in America, about how we're going to rebuild our communities in America. People say they're concerned about crime and violence. They ought to be. But you tell me how you can avoid it. If you have people living in square block after square block after square block where the family, the community, and the work base is broken down, and where vacuums are created into which drugs and crimes, gangs and weapons move. We need a serious debate about that. We need a serious debate about the fact that wage-earning, hourly wage earners have been working in this country for 20 years now with virtually no increase in their income. And that every country, I just came from Detroit, from our G7 Jobs Summit. Every wealthy country in the world is now having trouble creating new jobs, even when their economy is growing. We have always known in the past that productivity was good for jobs and incomes. I came from a part of the country where everybody used to work on the farm. You can't go back more than one generation older than me without finding somebody in your family that was on the farm. The farm jobs went away. People went to Detroit and Chicago and got jobs in the plants. Those economic changes have always happened, and every time technology and productivity took away jobs in one sector, more were created in another sector. Now we find that these wealthy countries are really having trouble with the explosion of technology, the explosion of productivity, and the globalization of the economy creating new jobs. Is something new happening in world history? I don't think so. I just think there are different lags. But the point is, no one knows for sure. This begs for honest political debate and genuine conflicts of ideas. Why then are we confronted in this administration with an opposition party that just stands up and says, no, 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 no? When I was a Democratic governor and they had the White House, I constantly sought them out, engaged them in debate, offered to work with them on issues from education to welfare reform to crime to you name it. I never did them the way they are doing us in Washington, D.C. today. It is wrong, and it is not good for the United States of America. I tell you, I'll tell you something else. The mayor talked about me being a marathon runner. The marathon comes from a certain place inside me. I am an old-fashioned, really old-fashioned American. I believe more than half the time, in the contest between good and bad, good wins. In the contest between truth and falsehood, the truth wins out. I believe that most people want something that will elevate them and bring them together with different people instead of something that will demean them and divide them from others. That's what I believe. I believe fundamentally in the common sense and the essential core goodness of the American people. Don't forget that the Alexis de Tocqueville said a long time ago that America is great because America is good, and if America ever ceases to be good, she will no longer be great. We have to appeal to what is good in this country. And we have to ask people to face hard truths and debate hard issues and come together and think new thoughts about problems that we are frankly not solving today. That is what I wanted to do when I became president, and what I am doing my best to do. And I am only sorry that too often, in too many ways, on too many days, it is a debate which engages only members of my party. I will say this: Senator Kennedy has had some good success in getting a substantial number of Republican senators to talk seriously about health care. We are having some help in dealing with the issues of crime. But this overriding, negative, intensely personal, totally political, devoid of principle attack is not good for the country, and it is inconsistent with the tradition of Abraham Lincoln and Teddy Roosevelt. And I can tell you, if I ask you to go home tonight and make a list of the greatest presidents who ever served here, and the greatest things that were ever done in Washington for the American people, you would have members of both parties on your list, but every one of them would have done something good for the American people, would have tried to elevate the dignity and the human potential of the men and women of this country, tried to give the children of this country a better future than their parents had. I got into this work because that's what I wanted to do. And I am old-fashioned enough to believe that in every age and time, the central purpose of our common political life will be to find new and important ways to get people together and to get things done, so that we can elevate the meaning and content and direction of people's lives and do right by our children and by our future. That is what I think. And I'll tell you something. In 1994, in 1996, if there is only one party that believes that, the American people in droves will come to us. Thank you, and God bless you all.